Thank you for joining this video tour of St. Ambrose Chapel. I'm Nancy Tramontana, a volunteer guide with the Department of Public Education and Visitor Services here at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. Visitors often describe the cathedral as awesome, cavernous, enormous, immense, and vast. Imagine a space so expansive that its width and length could house 2 football fields, and its height could accommodate the Statue of Liberty, even with her torch held high. St. John the Divine's record-breaking size is a place where people might feel inspired, peaceful, spiritual, and just simply wowed. But what about experiencing the cathedral on a smaller scale? You might be surprised to discover that smaller and more intimate spaces exist within St. John. Located in the East End are 7 chapels, much less massive, but I think still really awesome. For some, these chapels evoke a sense of intimacy, comfort, quiet, and solitude. To find the chapels, we need to travel down the nave to the Ambulatory, which is part of the cathedral's apse. The Ambulatory curves around the choir and high altar and serves as a passageway to the 7 chapels known collectively as the Chapels of the Tongues. They were each designed to honor the most represented immigrant groups in New York City during the 19th and early 20th centuries. The cathedral was conceived, designed, and built during a time when New York City, as well as the rest of the country, was experiencing waves of immigration from European countries. These chapels express a key part of the cathedral's mission, to be a house of prayer for all people. At 50 feet long and 27 feet wide, the Italian chapel, St. Ambrose, is my favorite small space in the cathedral. It was completed in April of 1914, and 2 months later, the first Italian spoken service was held. The donor, Sarah Reeves, commissioned the architectural firm of Career and Hastings to create the chapel that would serve as a memorial to her family. Besides designing her mansion in 1907, Career and Hastings designed many New York City buildings, including the New York Public Library. Of the 7 chapels, St. Ambrose holds the distinction of being the only chapel executed in Neo-Renaissance design. It stands in sharp contrast to the dominant Neo-Gothic style prevalent throughout the cathedral. Neo-Gothic was part of the mid-19th century Romantic movement in architecture. It drew its inspiration from medieval design. Gothic cathedrals are usually characterized by 5 architectural elements: large stained glass windows, pointed arches, ribbed vaults, flying buttresses, and ornate decorations. By contrast, Neo-Renaissance drew its inspiration from the classical forms of Greek and Roman architecture. It encompasses the lavish and ornate features in Beaux-Arts design that was popular during America's Gilded Age, roughly between 1880 and 1930. Combined with extravagant designs, barrel vaulting, rounded arches, light-colored stone, and an emphasis on symmetry and balance, Neo-Renaissance buildings were a favorite among many of New York's wealthy citizens. Career and Hastings Chapel was met with much enthusiasm and praise. The August 1914 issue of Architecture Record called the chapel a noteworthy example of the use of the Renaissance style to express devotional feelings and design. At the entrance to the chapel, we are greeted by an ornate bronze screen. When viewed from inside the chapel, we can see the story of St. Ambrose's life told through 7 bronze sculptures that top the screen. St. Ambrose was born in 340 CE. He studied law in Rome and became the governor of a province in northern Italy. He was called upon by popular demand to be the Bishop of Milan in 374. As a saint, he is known as one of the 4 Latin doctors of the Church. Doctor, derived from the Latin word for teacher, designates Ambrose as a scholar whose work greatly influenced the doctrine of the Church. Here we see St. Ambrose in his ecclesiastic attire. You might wonder why there are sculptures of beehives beneath him. There's a story that when he was an infant, a swarm of bees settled on his face while he lay in his cradle. They didn't sting him, but instead left behind a drop of honey. This was considered a sign of his future greatness as an orator and leader. So like we see here, he is often depicted with a beehive. He is the patron saint of bees, beekeepers, candle makers, and bishops, to name just a few. Above the screen is the rounded arched entryway and the molded barrel vaulting, both hallmarks of Neo-Renaissance design. The Neo-Renaissance arch and vaulting contrast to the pointed arches and rib vaulting found throughout the cathedral. Here we see the light rosato marble walls, which feature a false sense of depth, and it's modeled after the sacristy at the cathedral in Siena. And sculptured in the spandrels, which are the curved triangles around the wall's arch, are the four gospel writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We can see here how the Corinthian column shows off the wall's symmetry. Its capital and base are richly decorated with florals and garlands. The choir stalls and wainscoting are made of dark Italian walnut and inlaid with pear wood. Hanging from the vaulting are four ornate silver lamps. Of the four, one is an antique from Italy, and the other three are replicas. At the far end of the chapel, a lavishly sculpted reredos sits atop an alabaster altar. The reredos is carved of wood and gesso and overlaid with gold leaf. A Renaissance painting, The Virgin and Child, is displayed in the lower part of the triptych. The bottom niches host statues of St. Francis on the left and St. Ambrose on the right. The reredos is flanked by two rounded arched windows, each bordered with Italian Renaissance tracery. The small panes of glass are decorated with repeated designs. On the right are beehives, as well as mitres and scourges, Ambrose's other symbols. The left window features the storogram, which is one of the earliest depictions of Jesus, made by superimposing two Greek letters, the tau and the rho, which look like a figure hanging on a cross. Also at the top of the window is the cathedral's insignia. I hope you enjoyed visiting St. Ambrose Chapel, one of the smaller spaces within the cathedral's massive walls. As a house of prayer for all people, you are welcome here, no matter who you are and where you are from. Take care, and I hope to someday meet you on a tour.